The marketplace of Zerith Station was alive with the usual chaos. Traders shouted their wares across narrow corridors. The hum of hover carts blended with alien chatter, and bright neon signs flashed advertisements in dozens of languages. Among the crowd, humans were uncommon enough that a single human merchant could attract stares. But Elias Rin, a human scavenger and trader, had learned long ago how to move unnoticed when necessary. He carried little on his back besides a worn satchel containing essential tools, credits, and the small gadgets he'd scavenged from derelict ships. On Zerith Station, anonymity was survival. He wasn't looking for trouble that day, but as he wandered past the stalls filled with exotic alien goods, his eyes caught something unusual, a line of cages tucked in a shadowed corner. The signs above them were written in the harsh angular script of the Varkani, a species known throughout the galaxy for their strict control over slaves and mercenaries. And in one of those cages sat a girl. She looked young, human-sized, but her skin shimmered with a faint silver hue under the station lights. Her eyes, deep violet, watched Elias with something beyond fear. Curiosity, intelligence, and a spark of defiance. The price tag hovered above her. 20 credits. Elias had 23 credits in his wallet. It wasn't much, barely enough for a week's rations, but something about her gaze made him hesitate and then act. The purchase. 20 credits, Elias said to the Varkani overseer, a tall, four-armed alien with segmented armor plates. The overseer tilted his head, his mandibles clicking. For this one? Are you certain? She's special. I'm certain, Elias said. The credits transferred electronically with a swipe, and the cage door hissed open. The girl didn't rush out. She stepped forward cautiously, measuring him with every step. Elias offered a hand. I'm Elias, he said simply. Lira, she whispered. And then the crowd's eyes were no longer on the marketplace stalls. They were on the human who had spent almost nothing to free someone the galaxy considered valuable. Elias didn't care. He tucked Lira's small frame under his arm and moved quickly toward the nearest exit, blending into the corridor of traders and travelers. A safe haven. The station's lower levels were dark and mostly abandoned. Elias led Lira to an old storage room he'd been using as a makeshift home. It smelled of oil and recycled air, but it was safe for the time being. Lira sat quietly, still absorbing the fact that she was free. You didn't have to buy me, she finally said, her voice trembling. Elias shrugged. I didn't want anyone else owning you. That's all. Her eyes widened slightly. You don't understand. I wasn't just a slave. I was chosen. Elias frowned. Chosen for what? To lead, she said simply. To command an empire. To rule. He laughed nervously, thinking she was joking.
Right.
And I'm the king of Zerith Station. She looked at him steadily, unblinking. I'm not joking. I am Lira Valys, heir to the Valys Dominion. I've been hidden among slaves to keep me alive. And now, you've taken me into the human world. I don't know what your intentions are, but the galaxy will come looking for me. Soon. Elias swallowed. The weight of what he had done began to settle on him. The first threat. That night, the station sensors picked up unusual activity. A small fleet of ships approached from hyperspace. Sleek, black, and unmarked, they didn't belong to the station's traders. They found me, Lira said, her voice calm but tense. You need to hide me, human. Elias nodded. Then let's make a plan. Using the old maintenance tunnels of Zerith Station, they moved to a section few visitors ever reached. There, Lira explained her past. The Valys Dominion had been overthrown years ago by a coalition of rival empires. Her family was scattered, hunted, and imprisoned. She had been sent away as a child to avoid assassination and had lived among slaves under false identities ever since. Elias listened quietly, trying to process the enormity of it. "So, you're basically royalty," he said finally. "And you just bought a princess for 20 credits," she replied, a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. Elias couldn't help but laugh. The absurdity of it almost broke the tension. The chase. By morning, the Varkani mercenaries arrived, scouring the station for Lira. Elias used every trick he knew: holographic decoys, emergency bulkhead closures, and even hijacking a small cargo shuttle to create a diversion. Through it all, Lira stayed close, guiding him with knowledge of the Empire and her enemies. For someone who had been hidden and controlled for her entire life, she was remarkably resourceful. "You're better at this than I expected," Elias said as they ducked into a maintenance hatch. "Experience," she replied. "Even in captivity, I learned to survive. You just bought me freedom, now we need to survive together." Their bond began forming quickly, forged in the fire of necessity. The revelation. They reached a hidden docking bay where Elias had stored a small starship. Lira climbed aboard, her eyes scanning the control panels and readouts. "You know how to fly this?" she asked. "Enough to get us out of the station," Elias admitted. As they took off, Lira revealed something even more shocking. "Elias, my freedom cost 20 credits. But what I gained from you was priceless. I can trust you. I've never been able to trust anyone. You are human and you have a heart. That is more valuable than any army, any weapon, any title." Elias felt the weight of her words. He had acted on instinct, on the flicker of something he couldn't explain when he saw her in that cage. And now, the galaxy's future depended on that moment of instinct. Across the stars, the Valys Dominion had networks everywhere. Their enemies were relentless, tracking Lyra's signal and anticipating her movements. But with Elias at the helm of the starship and Lyra's guidance, they managed to stay ahead. During the journey, Lira began teaching Elias about the Empire, its history, politics, and power structures. For every lesson, Elias realized that he was not merely a human helping an alien. He was now part of a legacy, a living symbol of trust and loyalty that the Valys people had been waiting for. And he began to understand something else. Despite her royal blood and vast potential, Lira was still a girl, human enough to feel fear, hope, and gratitude. The confrontation. After days of evasion, their pursuers finally caught up near the asteroid belt of Karath Prime. The Varkani fleet was massive, weapons charged, and intent clear. Capture or kill. Lira and Elias devised a plan. Using the asteroid field for cover, Elias piloted the small ship through narrow corridors and gravitational pockets. Lira used her knowledge of the enemy fleet's tactics to direct him, calling out maneuvers with precision and authority. They reached a narrow pass, where a single Varkani destroyer attempted to trap them. Lira activated a concealed distress beacon, broadcasting her identity to hidden Valys loyalists in the sector. Within moments, a dozen ships emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the Varkani and forcing them to retreat. Elias looked at her in disbelief. "You knew this would work?" "I hoped," Lira said. "And sometimes hope is all we have. A new beginning." They landed on a hidden Valys enclave, a secret base untouched by the Empire's enemies. Lira stepped off the ship, looking up at the stars. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. Elias followed her, still processing everything. "You know," he said, "I spent 20 credits today. I thought I was buying freedom for someone, but it turns out I got something much bigger." Lira turned to him, her eyes softening. "You gave me trust, human. That is worth more than all the credits in the galaxy." And as the twin suns of Karath Prime set, Elias realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a human engineer in a forgotten part of space. He was part of a story that would be told across the stars, a story of courage, trust, and the priceless bond forged between two very different beings. Somewhere in the galaxy, an empire had been waiting for its lost heir, and a human had unknowingly saved her. And the consequences of that small act of kindness would echo through the cosmos for years to come.